Okay, welcome to Conversations with Neighbors, our beautiful sign here. The show where we highlight the people who make our communities vibrant, creative, and full of life. Today, I'm joined by someone whose journey started right here in Newmarket and has taken him across some of the most prestigious stages and production rooms in the world. Lee Wilson is a Toronto-based actor, director, and TV producer, and he was the founding artistic director of Resurgence Theatre Company, which helped bring the York Shakespeare Festival to life right here in town. He's now a professor at the University of Windsor, training the next generation of performers, and we're lucky to have him back in Newmarket for something special, but let's dive into his story. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Myles.
Okay, so you were born in Newmarket.
Yes, yeah. Born and bred. Went to Meadowbrook Public School and lived over on Sunny Point Drive there for many, many years. And then I went to Huron Heights and had a great career there. And that's kind of when the drama bug really bit.
Yeah.
In grade 9, I was lucky enough to be cast in a show. And we had an amazing high school teacher by the name of Michael Halfin, known quite well around the community, and the amount of young artists who came out of Huron and Huron drama. I mean, I started in a portable in the back near the football field, and of course they turned into a big arts Huron program with amazing facilities. But the amount of actors that came out of Huron Heights and went on and are working professionally now is incredible. So
that's when the spark happened, grade 9, Huron Heights. And what were some of the early days of that when that spark happened? Some plays that you did or some classes that you took. You mentioned the teacher. Like, talk me through kind of that era for you.
Sure. Well, I think, I grew up playing soccer. I mean, that was my thing. I played year round. I did indoor, outdoors, played for several teams in Newmarket. Markham, got to a pretty high level. I thought, sports was going to be my thing. I was looking at all sorts of different fields that maybe I could go into. But then I got cast in a play, and I it's one of those things. It's not tangible unless you've done it, unless you've been live on stage and had that experience in front of a live audience. That bug that I talk of, you don't know what it is, but it's a buzz. It's a realization that, especially if you realize that you can do it well and that the audience is responding to what you're doing. It's pretty powerful. And I just started to fall in love with storytelling. It really wasn't about acting in the beginning. Of course, it never is, right? It's always about showing off and I'm getting a little, little bit of attention here. But then as I got more serious and started to do more things and thought, maybe I can do this as a career. That's when I started to get quite serious about it. And then I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to do this for a career, I need to go get trained, And I was reading a lot of books at the time about the great actors. And my dad was a huge supporter of mine and was taking me to acting lessons downtown in Toronto when I was like 12 years old, So it was always kind of there. And then my mom, she was an amazing dancer back in England, ballroom. So I think the arts was kind of in my blood already. And then I was reading a lot of books just about the great actors, a lot of the great stage actors. And I was starting to go to Stratford. And I was starting to watch a lot of the shows there, specifically Shakespeare, and started geeking out a little bit on that. So I thought, well, listen, I'm going to audition for a couple of theater schools in the acting programs, some of the top ones. And if I get in, then I know the universe is telling me something. And if not, I think I even applied to Carleton University for environmental science or something. The backup, right? But I got in, and I ended up going down to Toronto Met. At the time, it was called Ryerson Theatre School, and it was kind of a separate entity from the university. It was its own artistic hub, which I really loved. It was a dance program, technicians and actors all in the same building. So that was the beginning of my journey.
Yeah, like you mentioned, you get the buzz of it, right? The feeling, and you're like, I like this. This is infectious. That's like the one part of it. And then you start to learn about the craft of it and all the pros that have done it too. And you kind of get to dive into the actual art of it. And I think it's the combination of those two that's where the magic is, you know, like you love the feeling too, but as well, you're interested in the craft and you know, for me, it was like business, like getting into business where I was like, I don't really know what's going on, what I'm going to do. And then like I found this thing and it was like, oh, this gives me energy, right? Like, and then that's something that you can just carry on forever.
Absolutely.
So I have your training took you down from Ryerson to Soul Pepper's first ever training group.
That's right.
So what goes on there? How did that shape you?
Well, I think it was my second last or my last show down at Toronto Met. There was a couple of actors who ended up coming to see the show, I think. Our town was the show. And I had quite a small role. I think I only had like 15 lines in that play. And one of the actors from Soul Pepper basically scouted myself and another classmate of mine, Brandon McGibbon, who's still a fantastic actor in Toronto. And we were invited to basically apply to this program with this new theater company. And they were going to be doing 2 shows in rep with quite a famous director, Robin Phillips, who was the artistic director of the Stratford Festival in the 70s and 80s. Robin, he was the one who brought Sir Peter Ustinov over, Dame Maggie Smith, just did some amazing productions and some work. And I had already known about Robin before then because I had read a couple of books. I think one of them was called The Stratford Tempest or something, but basically about his years at Stratford. So I knew I have to work with this director, and this new theater company was going to be exciting. There were a lot of these quite famous actors from Toronto, Joe Ziegler, Diego Matamoros, it was Albert Schultz, Peter Donat. So Brent Carver, who's a Tony Award winner. So I said, I have to do this. And I was so lucky because coming right out of school and then doing that, and it was essentially we would work with Robin in the mornings, and then we would watch or audit the rehearsals. And he was doing the Don Carlos and the Misanthrope and Rep. And if you look at that training company, the people who were in that first training company are now all over the world doing film and TV, lighting design, stage management. Like, it was just an incredible place to be. And just watching him work with those amazing actors in that first season and the buzz, that was when I started really thinking about and being inspired, as you say, with the business mind starting to go, I can do this.
Yeah.
Like, why can't I do this? And I knew I wanted to do Shakespeare. And I knew Newmarket was the place to do it. Fairy Lake just happened to have the name because I knew the first production had to be A Midsummer Night's Dream. Audience friendly, funny, great for kids. So my mind started going there. And then I remember, I was so bold, when you're young, the things you do. I was writing Kenneth Branagh letters, trying to get advice from, Kenneth Branagh, and I was getting letters back from Ken's assistant. And I called up Tom Taylor, the mayor, and said, can I have a meeting? And, Tom, he was so wonderful and such a huge supporter of ours. And he said, of course, come on in. Yeah. So there I am, 24, I think I was at the time, and sitting with Tom Taylor, and I just pitched my idea. And I said, so I want to do a Shakespeare in the Park. I want to do it in Fairy Lake. I want to do a Midsummer Night's Dream. Going to hire a professional director to do it. And I pitched this thing, and quite easily he could have just passed it aside, but he got behind it 100%. And, we did 10 seasons in Fairy Lake. Unfortunately, my career got busy. My partner, who I went to Ryerson with, Anthony Leo, he was getting into producing. So our careers took off. And unfortunately, we just didn't have the time anymore to devote. But, we had a good 10 years.
Yeah, and it planted a seed in Newmarket. It's been carried on in another version of that.
Yeah.
And there's some cross promotion. And my cousin Landon, he was in one of those seasons too. And he's carried on his acting career in theater, and he's at Soul Pepper Theater in the Distillery District doing he's probably done 500 shows down there now.
That's so great.
And
circle coming.
Yeah. So that's everyone's connected.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the things that you directed. You directed Romeo and Juliet and assisted in the Tempest.
Yeah, I did. I got into directing quite late, and it was actually Robin Phillips, who I met in Soul Pepper, who, he planted the first seed when I was doing the training company, because I was an actor then, and he was directing me as Henry V. And he pulled me aside one day in rehearsal and said, he said, you're a really great actor, but he says, you're a director inside. And I was kind of taken aback by that at first, because
you're like, is that a compliment?
Exactly. Was it a compliment, or is I was considering I'd always wanted to be an actor, and I had just done my 3 years of actor training, but he was the one who planted the first seed. So after that, he kind of said, well, listen, why don't you come over for lunch, and we can just talk a little bit. So he lived outside of Stratford, so I did. And we continued those lunch conversations up until he died a few years back. But I started with Resurgence as an actor, and we would hire the directors in. But as I was having these meetings with Robin, and as he was encouraging me, I started dipping my toes a little bit. So I ended up reaching out to Richard Rose, who was a director in Toronto who had just taken over the Tarragon Theatre. And they had a grant that was either for, directing, or if you wanted to kind of apprentice as an artistic leader kind of thing. And I applied, and Richard asked why I applied. And I said, well, Richard, Robin planted the seed. I suspect he's right. An actor really needs to live in the moment, right? It's like Maggie Smith says, you have to learn your lines, and then you have to forget them. And if you're thinking about your line ahead of you or behind you, you're out of the moment. So you have to just trust that the work is there and that the words come. Well, I as an actor would always be in my head, mainly about the other actors. I would be acting with someone and I'd be looking at them going, when you can't move there because now you're taking focus. I was doing that kind of thing. So I suspected is right. Robin was right. And so Richard took me on. So I assistant directed him at the Tarragon on 3 shows. And then I started directing at Resurgence. And then I applied for the Birmingham Conservatory, which is the actor training program at the Stratford Festival. And at that time, they took one director and one playwright with the actors who were in the conservatory. And I had gotten in because I actually knew the person who was running it, because he had directed me as an actor at the Centaur Theatre in Montreal, David Latham. And so I went to the conservatory and I was the one director. And that's really where my confidence began to really take hold, and for me to say, yeah, you know what, I am more of a director than I am an actor. But not only that, what surprised me was I actually enjoyed it more. I found that, as an actor, I love being an actor, and I still do some acting today, but the idea of having a sense of the whole world picture and telling the full story is what really I dig, and I think I'm really good at. I'm really good at detail, and I know how to work with actors because I am an actor. So I have the language. I have many languages, I think, as a director that I can get through to an actor because I know what I need. And I think that was one of the other things that Robin was when he first mentioned it to me, that he recognized that I was looking at the whole picture in the way I would talk to him about the work and ask questions, but also he knew that I understood what an actor needed.
Yeah, you get the perspective of each individual actor because you've done it through that lens, but then not everyone can zoom out and see everything from 10,000 feet above and then be able to go into the most granular piece of it. And I think that's what it really takes to be a good director.
Beautifully said. And that's absolutely right.
It's the zooming in and zooming out to put the whole puzzle piece together, put everything together. And so a very unique thing is you got dual citizenship in Ireland, and you've even done some work in Ireland as well too. How does that come about? And what's that experience like? And like, what have you taken from that type of culture over there and then kind of mix it in over here?
Yeah. So it actually, thanks for reminding me, it goes back because I don't think I fully answered your question about the Tempest at Stratford. But where it started was Des McAnuff, who became the artistic director of Stratford, shortly after I was there in the conservatory, Des started a program for training directors called the Michael Langham Workshop for Classical Directors. So I applied for that because the conservatory was great, and I got a lot out of it as because I got to assist on two shows at Stratford, and I really learned a lot, and I got to be an actor in the conservatory. But I thought, this program is specifically for directors, so I should do this. So I applied, and part of that program was you become an assistant director on a show, and I got placed with Des as his assistant director on The Tempest, which was with Christopher Plummer, and Chris was about 82 at the time or whatever, and so as I was working on The Tempest with Des and working with Chris, when you're working with an actor of that caliber and that experience and his international experience, a lot of the discussions I would have with Des, or a lot of the discussions I would have one-on-one with Chris while we were, sitting there chatting or in tech, he would just talk about, both of them would say, if you really want to be a great artist, if you really want to get a sense of the world and storytelling, you have to get out of Canada. You have to leave and you have to experience other cultures and other forms of theater, work with different artists who have different backgrounds, actors who are method versus classical versus actors who are film actors versus. So they kept planting this seed. And I had an Irish passport. My dad's from Belfast, Northern Ireland. So I was able to get my European passport. But my mom's English. And of course, my dad being from Belfast, part of the UK anyway, I could get a UK passport. So I ended up getting both right away. And then I was invited back a couple of years later by Des to work with him on The Who's Tommy at Stratford, a big musical. And Des kept on just planting the seed. He said, so have you decided, are you gonna go? Are you gonna do it? And I said, yeah, I am. But I didn't know how to do it. And I thought, you know what, the easiest way for me is to go get my master's. But I've been working professionally now for years. I don't want a 3-year program, 4-year program. But in the UK and Ireland, I knew there was 1-year programs. So my way was to apply for my master's at a place called the Lear in Dublin, Ireland, which is a new school that was created by in association, I think, with the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London, which is a pretty famous drama school. And I went there and I did directing for a year. And then I did a part of that is you have to do your thesis production. So I decided to pitch a friend of mine, Hannah Moscovich, beautiful Canadian playwright. I pitched Hannah's East of Berlin. And I did it as my thesis production, and it got picked up by the Project Art Center. It got picked up by a professional theater. And then I just started working. I started working in Dublin, and I was doing kind of what Des and Chris had been saying, and just working with these incredible Irish artists and seeing forms of theater I'd never seen before, and watching these amazing actors like Kieran Hines and Andrew Scott in these, 150-seat theaters, and doing this incredible work, and working with Sir John Hurt just before he passed away, and having conversations with these incredible artists that I thought I'd never have access to. And it just it just solidified everything they had said and made me realize just how small the world is, because I was working with actors and directors who would say, oh, do you know so-and-so in Canada? Do you know so-and-so? And I was like, yeah, I do. And it was just this amazing, you realize just how small the community is, but at the same time, how big the world is.
Yeah, for sure. And so you've mentioned it a few times, like mentors are a huge part of your life, right? And it seems like in different chapters of your life, they've kind of given you the nuggets that then you've gone and fulfilled too. Yeah. And I think like now you're kind of in this mentorship role yourself, right? So you're teaching at the University of Windsor. So talk about that and kind of this phase of, you're good. You have the ability to now give what others have given you too.
Yeah, and I think that's it's crucial, and it was told to me, and I was asked to do it by certain people who mentored me. They made me understand how important mentorship is to the next generation, and they made me know that it was important that I carried on the work that they were passing on to me and anything I had learned to others. So, and I think that's part of being a director too. I mean, I think many a director would say, you know, directing is you're guiding and supporting actors the whole time. Sometimes you're teaching the younger actors. Obviously, the more experienced actors, they are teaching you. But if you are open to the work, if you have a keen eye, and you listen, you can learn so much to be able to pass on to those younger actors. And I think my work starting as a professional director, before I actually got into teaching, I found that a lot of my work with younger actors was teaching mainly stagecraft. You know, they had a good understanding of acting, but they didn't have a great understanding of stagecraft. And when I say that, I'm talking about things like when to take focus, when to give focus, eye contact, breathing, having a sense of how big is the space, how much voice do I need, how do I train my voice in a way that I'm not shouting, that I can still have the nuance and the colors and the tone vocally to be able to portray what I need to an audience, and simple things like just how to stand on stage, how to be grounded, how to be present. So these are the things that I was recognizing. So I think when I decided to get into teaching and training young actors, this was the stuff that I was bringing into the room that I hadn't noticed with the actors coming out of theatre school. And I'm not just talking about Canada. I was noticing this a little bit in Ireland as well. It's just the ability of stillness and the ability to have a sense of the stage, you know. So that has been a big part of my work.
Yeah, it's cool. Like when you get to go out into the world and gather all this experience and stuff too, and a craft that's so rich, but you get to add your pieces to it, the things that you see, you notice, like all these, like, call it micro skills that make like big impact, right?
Absolutely.
And now it's full circle. You've come back to Newmarket and you're going to be working with some young performers, mentoring some people there too. And I think if anyone else is listening to this, like a young actor, like what's a piece of advice that you would give them? You know, if someone's consuming this video or listening to this podcast too, and they're 17-year-old aspiring audience, like what do you say to them?
I'd probably say two things. I would say, don't be afraid to reach out to people that you admire. I mean, that's what I did. As I mentioned, I think at the beginning of this podcast, I was writing Kenneth Branagh when I was in theater school. Most people go, you're crazy. But the thing is, it's you never know when they're going to respond. You know, a lot of the great actors, the great directors, they get a lot of people who are fans, you know, because they're a celebrity but if for you it's about the work, you know, a lot of the great craftspeople are celebrities, and there's a reason why, because they're so good. The Dame Judi Denches, the Sir Ian McKellens, you know, the Idris Albas. You can go through the list of these incredible people who are so humble. And if they know that it's about the craft and that you want advice, they will sit down and talk with you, or you'll get a letter, like I have numerous times. Like I've reached out to everyone I've admired, and sometimes I never actually get a conversation with them. Sometimes I do, but I'll get a letter. And there could be just a gold nugget of advice in that letter. So that would be the first thing I would say is who do you admire? What kind of work really drives you? And to try and reach out to them, even if it's a coffee, if it's a letter, to get advice, because that advice is gold, and it keeps you grounded. It keeps you grounded to the craft of acting and getting better. as opposed to getting swept up into the business side of it. I need an agent, I need to get auditions, I need to do a TikTok video, because that can quickly lead you away, I think, from what's important, which is be fantastic at what you do, and eventually people are going to notice. So that would be number one. And then the second thing anyone can do: watch as much theater and film and TV series. Go see as many art galleries as you can, because that is where the inspiration comes. That's where you'll start to see what kind of work you really dig. And it's also, you'll start to see the crafts people, the great actors versus, I'm not going to say not great actors, but the people who really, because I think every actor is great and brave and all that, but I think the people who work on it every day, you can tell the difference in if you really watch closely and what they do, and you could learn so much just by doing that.
Yeah, I think that second piece, you could see the difference of the people that work on the craft, which was your first piece of advice too, and then the other people that kind of, I call this like fake busy. Yes. It's like you're doing stuff to be busy, thinking that you're being like productive, but you're not doing the actual work that is actually needed for like improvement, right? It's like, oh, I need an agent. Like, oh, I'm searching for an agent, right? That could take you weeks, months, like, and then that's taking up your time too. It's like,
yeah, and I think the best way I can describe it, just to be more to be clearer, is there are those actors that you can tell are doing it for themselves. It's about them versus the text, versus the play, versus the story, versus their colleagues who they're acting with, versus the director, the editor, the sound person. What we do is, it's collaborative art form. It's not, something that's solo. You are working with a bunch of incredible people, and they can help you enormously. If you're open to that, and that's where the craft work comes in. So do you know what I'm saying? For me, it's about self versus the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful. And on Saturday, August 16th, you're running an exclusive actors and directors workshop.
Yep.
From 9 to 4:30. I don't know. I'd say get your spot, because it's going to sell out. Like, I'd probably be sold out while this comes out. But if you're lucky enough to get a slot in there, I think it's something special that you're going to be giving back to the community and to the younger actors, like the people did for you when you needed it too.
Yeah, thanks, man. And I'll just add to that, newtix.ca. It's the town's tickets hubs. You can get tickets, NEWTIX.ca, and it is at the Newmarket Public Library, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm happy to be home. I always love coming home, and I love giving back, so I'm excited to meet the people who come to the workshop.
Yeah, love it. All right. Bye-bye.